here.
Okay, I'll call the Master Plan Steering Committee meeting to order for May 2nd. And don't have an agenda in front of me, but I guess we can, if we have any open meeting minutes that we can approve, I'll look for a motion on that.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of April 4th.
Second, Anthony.
Okay, do we have any discussion on that?
Anybody have any
No.
issues?
All those-
No? All right.
Correct.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 There's Bill.
I'm here.
I'm sorry.
Yay. We just started. We accepted the minutes while we're waiting for you. So
Perfect.
that's all that's
Sorry
been
about
done.
that.
I turn the chair of the meeting over to Bill. This is Lonnie.
Well, thank you, Lonnie. All right.
Sorry.
So what's the first item on the agenda? I got to pull up the agenda here.
Public
Beside,
comment.
pardon me.
Go ahead,
Call to
Dominique.
Order. Yeah, the next agenda item is public comment.
Is there any public comment? Looks like there's only board members on, so no
Let's
public
see.
comment. All right. All right, with no further public comment, we'll move on to the next agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, the next agenda item is new business. Under that, there is an A and B. A is phase 2 survey. We'd like to provide a quick update on survey results, which as well as strategies for increasing survey engagement, which I'll turn over to Ryan for the moment, if I may.
You may.
So I think at the last count, when we just checked the surveys, there was 199 responses in. We were talking about the surveys a little bit prior to the meeting starting, and Dominique mentioned that we still have less surveys than advertising dollars spent. So I think it's time to really start to push in a little bit of a different direction. I know the last time at the April steering committee meeting, we were talking through a couple different strategies. Bill, I know that you said that the press release is going to be going out in I believe it was May 6th or May 7th
May 6th,
issue.
yeah.
Okay, issue of the town crier. So hopefully that will help. I know a couple different committee members were speaking about other town boards or committees and/or community groups in Mendon, posting on those Facebook pages, getting the word out through that way. And then also, I know there's a couple different in-person events that are coming up in town, especially the town meeting. I know you guys mentioned baseball games. I believe it was Strawberry Festival. Is that the right
Yeah.
fruit? Okay, good. And
And
then also the Memorial Day Parade as well. And then we just want to make sure that there's paper copies in the town hall and I believe the Taft Library. And then that was what I know we talked through before. I know that was a little bit of a mouthful, so love to hear any feedback on those and then also any new ideas, because I do think that, like Dominique said, we maybe need to start thinking about different ways we can get creative to try to get people to respond.
I know Lisa and myself, we pushed it out to a bunch of the community groups. I pushed it out to Mendon Moms and Dads group, pushed it out to the Brothers of the Brush and a couple others. So I'm surprised they're not getting any feed from that.
I do know, Bill, that Dan Byer, I gave him the flyer with the QR code, and he had laminated those and he did put them on the baseball and softball snack shack as well.
Yeah, maybe it's worth a trip if I go up there. and start forcing the people I know to do it. Grab them by the ear, bring them
know.
over. Let's go, let's get this done, jeepers.
It's such a surprise that people are not filling out the survey. It's not a big survey. Doesn't
No, it's
you
not,
think
and
that they'd
it's,
want to have?
yeah, it's simple, and I don't think they realize how important it is, you know?
Right.
It sort of identifies to the planning board the interests of the town, and, you know,
Right.
and the fact that, you know, there are changes coming to zoning. We know that in Massachusetts. 48 has been redone. It's been redone for over a year now. And the state's going to look for towns like Mendon to incorporate those changes. And we're just beginning with it. So
I think Ellen Agro mentioned that she was going to put something up at the town meeting too. I think that will be well attended and might generate some responses. Is that right?
Yeah.
Ellen? Were you gonna?
Yeah, I was looking, I thought somebody was making me a sandwich board type thing. I actually have a sandwich board, but I don't have the poster to go on it. And I could just put that right before they come in the polls. They can, you know, scan the QR code or what, I mean, not the polls, but town meeting.
yeah.
Have we done an email blast to all boards and committees?
No, I noticed somebody launched that out there today. I do have the email list for the town. Someone I think had sent it to Kim to send out.
Yeah,
And,
that's not.
Yeah, no, I'll blast it out tomorrow to our board.
Yeah, if you do
It
all
was a
Mendon
question- It was
users.
a questionnaire to the boards. That's what it was. But I'll send out a blast about the survey. But yeah,
On our
and-
side,
And
If you get that over to Laura, she'll definitely get it out if you send whatever message you want.
yeah, you got to send it through Laura. Definitely gets done by then. But
Just send it to
it is on the town-
bos@mendonma.gov and we'll make sure it gets out.
Hey, Bill,
yes,
are you just going to put a stack of surveys out on a table at town meeting, or do you need somebody to pass them out?
well, that's what I was wondering. I think it's better if we have somebody there handing them out.
I can make sure that I'm available for that. My schedule, I can manipulate my schedule to be able to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, also, the first time we went to do the master plan, we actually had a table at the town election. And that went pretty well, actually.
Yeah, Bob, you manned that, didn't you, Bob?
Yeah.
And so I think that might be a good idea too, is, we'll have some materials there. Maybe I can even find some other ones just for
Meeting.
people to identify. We used to have a banner for the front of the table. I haven't been able to get my hands on it. I haven't been able to find it. It was a nice banner. It said Master Plan Committee, and and to be honest with you, I don't know where it went to.
Hey, Bob,
Yes.
let's put out some lollipops. That'll keep everybody entertained. And
I thought you couldn't bribe the public.
no,
Yeah.
but you can give them water and lollipops. I think they'll be okay with that.
through the
Well,
chair, if I may.
Yeah.
So on our side, Ryan did send out a mass blast to everybody who subscribes to the Mendon Master Plan website. So we hit all of those known suspects, known targets. Do you have any, when we talk about the other events, the Strawberry Festival, et cetera, opportunities there might be for tabling, what's coming up in the future that you might be able to put some people out with some posters and some quick one-pagers and a fun, short, engaging activity that might draw some interest?
You know, I think the best place is probably Memorial Park on the weekends. I mean, there's baseball going on, softball going on. You just got to get them to fill it out. You know, it's the only thing that's for free today is a survey, right? And you still can't get them to do it. I mean, I'm, you know, the only way we were able to accomplish it the first go around was by individual mailing to each household, and it was like that was extremely costly. Number one. But it gave us back 1,700 responses, and it was crazy.
Wow.
We got so many responses back. I think the second time because we did 2 surveys like we did this time, and the second time we got it back about half that. So maybe people are just sick of filling out surveys. I don't know. But I
Bill,
think
did we do the reverse 911 last time that was discussed?
no, I haven't gotten to Dave Kersey yet. You know what? I'll call him right after the meeting tonight. And
And I do, I mean, to Bill's last point, I do think there is survey fatigue.
yeah.
So I'm not sure if
Yeah, because
I think
everybody's
Dan
sending
Barrow's going to
surveys
look
out.
for the old one too, right? Did he ever dig up the old one? The results?
The old results, we have them. I know CMRPC has them too, because
We do
but,
have them.
yeah, they were quite good. You know, they were really focused but so I mean, there's a lot of ideas. If anyone can brainstorm, just put it out there in an email to the entire group, and we can go from there.
Is there any information off the old surveys that would still apply to these new ones?
I don't recall it's been a while since I looked at that. It was a very, very short survey. Like Bill said, it was very concise and to the point. It was, I don't know, what was it, 2 pages or something? It was very, very targeted.
I think it was more than, I think it was like 7 pages, but as opposed to, you know, these first couple for this one have been pretty involved, but still, what's it take you? 15 minutes? I mean, really? Maybe that's what we should advertise. Take the 15 minutes, tell us what you want. I don't know.
I will definitely look back. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'll definitely look back at the old survey results and see if there's anything meaningful that is not outdated that we can carry over. It was, I think, 2013.
Yeah, it was 2013. Maybe we get the drive-in to do something for us. I don't know. I mean, no one's going to be able, we could probably put them up down there, but I don't think it's useful putting it on the screen, but you might be able to let us hang some. We might want to get a bunch of business in town just to start hanging these things up.
We do have the code up, the flyer up at the Muffin House too, with the QR code.
Yeah.
Did we get any hard copy responses from the library or the senior center or the town hall? Has anybody turned any in?
I had 2 people come to me to get some from my office, and I have heard nothing from the library or from the senior center.
Okay.
And the senior center people, typically, they're the ones that are going to do it by hand. They're not going to do it on their phones.
Right.
You know, maybe somebody should go down during whatever cribbage or mahjong and hand out the.
It's a good idea, actually. Get their attention.
Help them all fill it out.
Yeah. No, there's got to be a better way, but we'll just have to keep pushing the issue. I'll put it out there again. I'll send it out every other day just to aggravate people. Fill the damn thing out. I'll stop bothering you.
Lisa, had you put it on the bulletin board? Mendon bulletin board?
Yes, I do usually post it like
Yeah, I think
once
I
a
put it
week.
on there too. The minimum bulletin board. You know, I think Lisa and I pretty much peppered all the Facebook pages.
Mhm.
And
And-
the digital sign is still up at the light.
Yeah, it's still there, but it's being blocked by, it's not in a good spot.
Yeah.
Never is.
I have one more idea.
So-
So we recently, we're working with the town of Hopedale on a master plan as well. And they recently launched a survey, and then they concurrently launched a mini survey just targeting school age students. And the mini survey to school age students has done better than the townwide survey because, you know, it was launched at the directive, it was incorporated into the curriculum. The principal or whoever had the teachers bring it to their students. They did it as an activity. You don't want to ask them all those questions, I'm sure, or you will lose, I'm told you will lose student attention after a certain limited amount of time. And, you know, they don't obviously probably care about water or sewer, may not even know, but there's some things you could put to them at least to get the engagement up.
Yeah. I think it's just going to be a matter of attrition. To be honest with you, I don't think there's any easy answer to these. It's just going to take us, you know, pounding everybody with it and, you know, making sure that, like, I have no problem going to the ball field and telling people fill out the damn survey. You know, they do enough complaining. You know, get involved beforehand. But all right, well, let's see if we can come up with some ideas. And how much longer do we have to complete this survey? What did we earmark for a date?
Mr. Chairman, I don't recall what we earmarked. I think we said we'd keep it open until we got the answers that we needed.
Okay. Well, what do we want to put on
think-
that? Go ahead.
Well, I'm thinking definitely I think that if we canvass the people coming into town meeting, that might prompt quite a few responses. And then maybe if someone could go down to the senior center.
Yeah, town meeting and election.
Yeah.
I expect there to be a good turnout at both this year. Certainly the elections, I expect there to be a big turnout.
And I don't think you're going to get the same two sets of people at both events. So you're going to get new people at either one of those.
Yeah.
Well, with what's on the agenda and on the warrant for the town meeting, and certainly the select board elections, I think you're going to see more people at both these events this year than we normally see. It's not going to be the standard 100-person town meeting. I think I wouldn't be surprised, you know, if 500 people show up at the annual. Go ahead, Dominique.
That's a bold statement, Bill.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman,
really.
can you ask the moderator or board of selectmen or somebody who's involved in speaking to the public, can you ask them to pitch the survey, to speak on the master planning effort and to just encourage folks to participate? Is there any chance for that?
Lonnie, can you handle that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Just send me, could you send just a quick blurb over to me, and we'll make sure we say it at the beginning of every meeting and maybe at the close of every meeting. I also, just my crappy 2 cents on getting people to fill this out. Just a picture on the wall, or I mean, I've been to every single one of those places that you've said. I mean, I go to the Muffin House every morning. I was at opening day. I was at all these places that you're saying that these signs are up with, you know, with the exception of the library maybe. And I can't even tell you where it is in the space. I don't know if it's on the front door. I don't know if it's on the wall, and maybe I'm just not noticing it. But I really think what we need is not something for people to walk up and scan the QR code. You need to hand people something. And whether it even is business card size that we could just hand out at these meetings and whatnot, and they can take it with them so that they can fill it out later. Or some sort of email blast through the notification system. I believe did it, has it been sent out through our, for instance, I know that, I get an email with the agendas updated, things like that on the website. Ellen, have we sent it out through that? Because I forget even what I clicked on. I got it in my email at some point, and I clicked on it to fill it out for myself.
Yeah, I did. I got it through an email too, but I don't believe there's been a blast, unless there's a blast that goes to everybody that subscribes to everything, because it did go up on the banner on the website. So when that goes up, there might be a blast for the people that subscribe to that.
Okay.
I'm rethinking the all Minden users though. So if we do that, it's like a flooded email and a lot of people ignore that. But if we send the same email to the chair of every board and say, please have your entire board fill this out, and it's directed just to that board, they might take it a little more seriously. It's not an all Minden users email.
That's a good point. I can't even tell you if all the planning board members have filled it out. I'll have to check with them.
Right, and I oh, sorry, go ahead.
Did we not discuss maybe going through Code Red at one point?
So through Code Red, we could do it through the biggest thing with Code Red is we want to be cautious in how often we use it so it doesn't get ignored either.
Right.
But I believe through Code Red with the text message piece might be a good way, or maybe even through just an email piece of that, so that people, again, when they sit down at their desk at home, when they get done at the end of the day, they see it in their when they're going through their stuff and will actually click on it, rather than, oh, let me scan this QR code now while I'm grabbing a coffee, and now I got to remember, oh, that it's sitting in my, it's on my browser on my phone to then do it later on. I mean, it's just, you're going to forget about it, right? I feel like I just think it needs to be more in their face, or if they have something hard in their hand that we're giving out at meetings, that they can slide in their pocket or whatever they might be putting it, and then when they get home, they pull it out and go, oh yeah, and it's on their counter and they have 5 minutes and can do it. That's my only thought, and that's all I got. Thank you.
So Lonnie, what you're saying is like a lollipop with a with a little
keep the
sticker
wrapper
on it, little sticker on it that says master plan.
Right. I like it. I like the idea. Anything they can take home.
All right.
Found is that if you engage people, then they're more willing to participate than if they're left to their own devices.
That's true, Bob.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Lonnie, I like the business card, postcard theory, either one. We just have to come up with something, something to put on it. I mean, I can take the sheet that was sent to me, the 2 halves. I could take one of those halves, probably put it on a postcard.
By when, remind me what day town meeting is? What's the date on that?
It's Friday.
Town meeting's Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time.
Well, I mean, if you blasted out business cards through somebody through one of those online places that can get them to you next day, that just say something simple: Minden Master Plan for me, please fill this out, QR code with the web address. Bam, we'll have them and pass them out to everybody as they want. If we even order 100 of them or 200 of them, and then we can, if they see if it helps, we don't have to get a huge push on them. And if it does, then we can, if we see an uptick in it, then we can order another 100 for the or maybe we get more and you pass them out for the elections. Everybody could have 20 in their pocket as we're out and about. I can throw them out to people and say, hey, make sure you fill this out. So again, just a thought. I don't know. Or lollipops too. That's fine. I'll take anything to pass out.
Yeah,
Okay, so if my team was able to design a really quick business card size handout, would anybody be able to do the research on the town side, be able to do the research and figure out how to go about printing them through one of those companies expeditiously.
Absolutely.
Hey,
I can help
Yeah.
with that. Myself and Laura can probably get it worked out right away. If you can send me something, as soon as possible. I'll get the research done tomorrow or even tonight. And that way, if you, and Dominique, I'll let you know. That way there, you don't go create it for nothing and we find out we can't get them until next week.
Okay, so you're gonna research, we're gonna create, and is there any budget on the town side for printing?
We've got available funds in the planning
I'll
board.
get the number.
Okay,
I've got a an account that was a 53G account that was, the money's supposed to be used for the master plan only, so.
okay, wonderful. We'll work on a design.
Yeah, we've got plenty of funds in there, so shouldn't be a problem.
Could we do
Okay, I will, sorry, go ahead.
could we do something like put the QR code and maybe above it, put something like a caption, Mendon, where do you see it? Would that be catchy enough or would that be hokey?
Well, I want to get, I think if we just say, have a say in Mendon's future. Something simple that kind of draws their attention, but you're not going to be able to get too cute on a business card.
We
That's
did
why I-
use on the flyer this little, tagline like "Our vision period together" or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be helpful.
But we'll leave that up to you,
Okay.
Dominique. You guys do a
Okay.
pretty
Yeah.
good job.
We'll work on sourcing from existing materials that you guys have already said you liked, and we'll get something ASAP to Lonnie, etc.
Yep.
Has one other
Well,
question: is there a senior center newsletter or anything like that that people?
I think there is a newsletter at the senior center.
Usually, our committees put put a blurb in the senior center newsletter.
They haven't done one in a little bit because the person that used to do that had left, but I think they just hired somebody new, so maybe they'll restart that newsletter.
Okay. I'm really encouraged. I think that the next month is going to see a great uptick in survey responses. Let's do our best and follow through with all of these action items and go from there.
Yep. All right. So let's move on to the next agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, the next agenda item is review of the population and housing chapter. As a guest tonight, I have with me Sarah O'Brien. She is a CMRPC staffer who authored the population housing chapter and has been working to address and incorporate all of your edits. So she's prepared to walk you through where it is now, as well as the rationale as discussed on various points.
All right. Well, let's, I had an opportunity to look at it today extensively, and I like what I see, but let's review it and
Cool.
go from there. So,
Sure. So
Sarah,
First of
can
all-
you screen share, or would you like me to?
I can screen share. I just wanted to say, first of all, the comments were so helpful. So thank you to all of you who took the time to look really deep into it. I think the plan was to make this chapter as much of Mendon's chapter as possible. So I really appreciated your honest feedback on it. I had a few questions first that I don't think were answered during the review process to make the plan a little bit more specific. One of them was if anyone had any additional information on the Cobbler's Knoll development. The last I heard was from 2019, so I was wondering if that was complete or we had any more updates on the units.
Yeah, Cobbler's Knoll is complete.
Cool. And I think somebody brought up that there's another unit with affordable housing called Brookview Estates.
Yeah,
Also
that was
complete.
that was just completed.
Do you know if Brookview Estates has is counted under 40B as a subsidized unit? Okay. Do you know how
Yeah.
many units are subsidized?
I think it's
don't.
4.
Yeah, I think it's 4 because it's,
I think it's 4.
I think there were 16 units built, so 4 would be the number.
Cool. Thank you. I will add more information on those. Another thing that came up was the school district enrollment data that came out during a budget plan. I was wondering if anyone had that document so we could add it to the school enrollment section, because we just had the census info on that. But if there's more regional data, that'd be really helpful.
That deck is on, it's posted to the school website. So I can get a copy to somebody.
Awesome. What was the document you were referring to? Just the most recent like budget plan?
It's their budget hearing document. It's a PowerPoint that's online.
Perfect. Cool. So I can find that. No worries. Thank you.
It's mursd.org.
Awesome. Another thing that was a little bit vague online from the 2019 housing production plan in Mendon, there was a section, and I think a few of you in the comments brought up how vague it was in our plan, which I agree with, on the town pursuing town-owned land for a development. Something about an RFP process, that it didn't actually say the location of the town-owned land on what the development looked like.
It's I think it's 12 North Ave or 12 North Ave and what's the Milford Street address? Do you know?
It's 3 or 5.
Yeah,
But
that's what I thought.
that sounds more like the property that's down by the senior center.
Yeah.
No, the North Ave Milford Street is the corner.
Right, but there's
Oh.
also talking about town-owned land being turned into affordable housing over by the senior center.
I think that's the part of the whole senior plan there with them doing the garden houses. Something that Bill McHenry was working on when he was
Yeah.
there.
What about the 2 parcels that we just got RFP back on? We just got responses to, Bill and Lonnie?
Yeah.
One's a Morrison property, right? Like
One's a Morrison property, and I think the other one's a corner.
So I guess the question I had there was, if we're selling town-owned land, does our building plan, which indicates we're looking to move some of our town-owned land for the purposes of affordable housing, do we need to be considering things like that as we go forward in the master plan? More coordinated, I guess, execution, if you will.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Mendon is going to have to make a real pitch effort with affordable housing. The bill passed last year by the governor, basically the rewrite of 40A, is forcing towns into multi-unit housing, affordable housing, and accessory dwellings. Some of this stuff, I'm just passing through now, but some of this stuff will be as of right. And Mendon has to declare a certain area for affordable housing. So that's something we're going to have to tackle in the near future. I can't tell you that if Mendon sold the corner that it wouldn't end up in an affordable housing unit, because I think 40Bs are becoming very popular. Where 10 years ago you never saw one, you had one every once in a while. They're becoming very popular now. And it's very difficult from a planning board perspective with the 40B, because the planning board doesn't have control over it, the ZBA does. So it really doesn't get the handling from the planning board that it should. But that's what the state wants now. They want to move housing out into rural and suburban areas. And this is the way they applied it. And our risk of not doing that is risk of losing state funding.
So in terms of 40B, have we looked at land usage versus inventory levels, Bill? So it's 10% of your unit inventory.
Yeah, we're not even close.
SHI versus
right,
right,
like
or
2.
10% of land. You could go land versus count of units to as a 40B to address 40B. Do you know if Bill's looked at that?
Yeah, well, the problem with that is there's an incredible amount of land still available in that. So that percentage factor don't work.
So we have developable land identified. We
haven't identified it yet, but
you said, so that was one of the big things I think is we gotta, I mean, there's some actions there. Financial impact and developable land are 2 key things that have to happen as a precursor to sort of planning, I think.
Well, yeah, absolutely. The problem is the state doesn't give you a choice. If a 40B application comes in, like I said, planning board don't control it, ZBA does. But you don't have a choice unless the town buys a property. And we can't just go every time a 40B comes down. We can't just go buy the property because the state's going to look unfavorably upon that.
So is the focus of this chapter to mitigate 40B? Is that the objective from a town planning standpoint at this point, or is it something else? That's the other thing, is there seem to be a number of different ways.
Well, I can't give you a total answer to that until I'm working with town council now to go through 40A and, apply what we have to apply. But, they have it broken up into several. They have an urban policy, a suburban policy, and a rural policy. We obviously fall into the rural category. And I just got to see how it affects us,
Right. That makes sense from an execution standpoint, but from a plan strategy standpoint, question I would have is what is the town's objective, right? And I personally, I don't think 40B or preventing 40B should be an objective or a goal per se, or a primary
I agree
one.
with you.
But I do think like the senior housing aspect, Bill, when I read the chapter, that resonated with me. Like, okay, I can understand. So from a chapter standpoint, Sarah, it seemed you touched on a number of things, but I couldn't quite put together which were the primary goals for our plan, regardless of legal impact or 40B. And then some of the data being put in there didn't seem to be relevant to some of the goals I thought we were going after. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think a good clarification on that is, since this is the housing and population chapter, a lot of the things that you brought up, like the stats on race and age, that didn't seem to have any action points, were just there as like, here's the existing condition of Mendon. But I can see how that's confusing when it's right next to a lot of the housing things that do correspond with the goals. So if we can look over that again and kind of make it its own separate section of, this is just population.
Even an appendix. So if you've got demographics for the sake of informational, maybe separate it from actionable content, which is more the plan. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like as a town, I would probably, there's clear, I've heard it, Bill, you've heard it, I'm sure everybody's heard this, but sort of cradle to grave housing, right? There's a theme in that chapter that talks about our kids can't buy a house in Mendon when they start their family. Our seniors can no longer afford to live in Mendon potentially if they want to downsize, right? Mm-hmm. So I think simplifying would be really important here to say our objective is, one, to create, I won't say affordable housing. I'm not really talking about SHI here. I'm just saying,
Well, I'll tell you how that. I'll tell you why that exists, Mike, too, because there's a lot of ways that you can manage that and make property and housing values more affordable. You can do with cluster housing. You know, anything that reduces the impact fiscally, financially for both the developer and the homeowner. I mean, these are things typically in the past Mendon has not wanted. But unfortunately, you know, affordability has gone out the window. And I think that's why you see the average age in Mendon is one of the highest around, because young people can't afford to buy a house in Mendon.
But surveys that I have seen speak to the fact that single family housing is still primary, right?
Right.
Primary need. And I would think the financial impact of some of the density question, Bill, scares the heck out of me in terms of increasing density of housing. If we're talking about single family homes, taking down from an acre, half, whatever that is, down, rezone it, Bill. What's the impact on our school system? Because on the school side, your information on the school side is actually talking about decreasing enrollment. Whereas a lot of the actions or the type of housing we're talking about, increasing density of housing, is actually going to increase enrollment, right?
Yeah, the problem is that's one area that the state has asked towns to look at is density. I mean, the problem is,
and I think like over 55 makes. I just think
hold on, Mike. Like the problem is everything we do as a town is subject to scrutiny. The bylaws we write and the actions we take are only as good as they can stand up in court. How do we defend? What's our reasoning to defend density of acre and a half? Or some people wanted to go back up to 2 acres where it was originally. What reason do we have? Just because we want our yards to be nice and big and pretty? The state's not going to buy that. So, and that's one of the areas we're working on right now with town council is the density issue. I'll send you the article on the changes in 48, Mike.
That's fine. But I guess density could be addressed. So something like over 55, Bill, it actually increases your density, but also allows us to address the potential impact of school system, because you're probably not going to see the increase in enrollment with that type of affordable housing, right?
Right.
So that's my point. Is we're trying this chapter through every option up. I saw where Mendon was choosing which option we think makes the most sense for Mendon yet. And I think it's a draft, Sarah. So that's not a criticism. I think this is why I think we're talking about it, right?
Right.
To kind of get a path forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think, Bill, what do you think is going to resonate with folks in town in terms of a plan? You know what I mean? I think senior over 55, that type of development.
Well, we just had one turned down, Mike. So I'm not entirely sure even over 55 communities are acceptable to the town of Mendon.
We turned down the zoning, I think, right? Our second strike on
that's what it takes.
That land.
Well, I mean, I did it to protect us from an affordable housing unit that could land on that corner. No one wanted to listen. They had in their mind not to rezone it. Anything can come in on special permit, Mike. And unless the town has a real good reason to deny it, you have to allow it. So if we had made that a zone that over 55 mixed use situation, then we wouldn't have to worry about an affordable housing going there. I mean, they could still bring an affordable housing unit before us, but it'd be less attractive than what someone could do with an over 55 community.
For town-owned land?
Well, unless the town's going to keep it. I mean,
well, that's my point, Bill. Be careful with the argument, because people will say we'll just keep it as town-owned land, and thereby we don't have to worry about anything. And I think our objective would be to get some level of affordable housing in for seniors or what have you, right? We want this to be a positive growth thing as much as it is a blocking of 40B. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about one of these, as you've seen in every town now, one of these housing unit apartments, that are popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think there's just been one proposed in Upton on Mechanic Street of all places.
And that's the Protect Upton on those signs
Yeah,
I see.
that's
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, and the only chance they have of stopping that is Upton buying the property. Once again, you can't buy the state's gonna frown on a town that's trying to block 40B by purchasing the land.
Yeah. Can I make a suggestion that maybe we know blocking 40B might be an objective, but when we sort of put that in the back seat for now, because to your point,
Yeah,
Bill, if we talk
I'm
about
not,
blocking
not,
40B, that
to
can't
be
be our
honest with you, I'm
objective,
not
right?
in favor of blocking 40B. If it's
Just
built
want to manage
correctly.
it, right?
Yeah, if you manage it correctly. The problem is, when these things come through, the ZBA, which doesn't have the experience of the planning board, is managing that project. And a lot of times we don't even get brought into the project, which I think is a serious issue. I mean, but.
So I have to apologize to Sarah because I interrupted. I haven't stopped talking. So I don't know if you want to pick it back up. I'll go on mute now.
Dominique, did you have a comment first?
Yeah. So before we go back to the list of outstanding questions and then walk through some of the comments, since they were so hefty, I'd be surprised if we can work through all of them tonight. But in terms of the housing production plan that you guys passed in 2019 provided some safe harbor against the Comprehensive Permit Act and 40Bs. You've seen the strategies reiterated in Sarah's chapter. I know the town's working to update its housing production plan right now. And again, that's one of a couple of ways that the town can get safe harbor from unfriendly 40Bs. But the word tells it all. It's about production. So there are some things that come to mind as we talk about production, though, right? And maybe Sarah's captured these in the plan. I can't remember. But coming back to that idea of friendly versus unfriendly partnerships and dialogues versus people, developers jamming through an unfriendly project, using the Comprehensive Permit Act. So I think narrowing in on the specifics of potentially developable town-owned land and then working to cultivate friendly developments that are consistent with the priorities of Mendon residents, as well as sort of some educational aspects, because in every one of our towns, this question of, always comes up, we hate how nobody likes apartments, nobody likes townhouses, but we want our grandmother to stay in town and we want our college-age kids to be able to start a family. So continuing to work on the educational components of big A versus little a affordable housing. Then, affordable doesn't necessarily mean deeply subsidized and some of the stereotypes that come along with it. So I think we can continue and work on trying to find that line and to make sure that everybody understands what we're really talking about.
Well, yeah, and I think Dominique, Mendon is going to have to get familiar with this type of housing, whether it be small condo developments or because multi-unit housing is what the state is pushing. Like I said, some of this stuff, accessory dwellings and stuff like that, are as of right. And they'd like to see a mixed use component in your commercial districts. These are all changes that we're going to have to educate the town on to make them aware that this is what is being asked to everybody, not just town of Mendon.
Hey, the general question, I don't know if Bill or Dominique can answer this, but to what extent does Mendon have to look at this as Mendon versus more of a regional plan? Because when I think about here, mixed use and commercial, I mean, Bill, I still think of us as a bedroom community. You know what I mean? But if you looked at neighboring communities like Uxbridge or Bellingham, et cetera, they've got a much more diverse housing inventory. Does that make sense? And so when I think about
correct,
the people that work in Mendon could very easily live 15 minutes away, which is You know what I mean? So to try to do, have
mean,
Mendon
even
do it all feels like it's an impossible task. You know what I mean? So I don't know if we can look to leverage surrounding communities to say, you know, there's more of a comprehensive view of housing in the Blackstone Valley. Not that large, Dominique, but you understand what I'm saying?
yeah, unfortunately, they do it town by town, Mike. You know,
Bill,
Well, I
what
was also told that historic districts can't be Swiss cheese, and we said, well, Mendon likes Swiss cheese, and we're going to do it our way, and they basically said, okay.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Different than historic districts.
I mean,
understand
I'll
that.
tell you right now, Mike, I never envisioned Mendon reaching 10% affordable housing anyways. I mean,
Right.
that's just not going to happen. But we have to show progression. And currently, I think we stepped backwards last year. So we're working in the wrong direction.
Well, we can start going through some of these comments.
Sure.
First, I have to do the biggest apology for Lisa. I think when that document was converted into a Google document for you, a lot of the graphs and figures got a little cut off formatting wise. I looked at the version you looked at. I was like, oh no. Oh, so this might be your first time seeing like a well formatted chapter, but so we'll definitely get it. Maybe like a PDF might be more useful to make sure everything stays in its place. But basically what I did was address all of the comments that were in the different areas and just put them into this one document. So we can go quickly through them tonight and then send them over to you with like the full list of comments and approaches after this meeting. So you can look a little bit further. But I also kept track changes on for all of the changes that have been made since the last document was sent. So you don't have to do a deep read again. You can clearly see what has been updated.
Sarah, can you zoom in just a smidge?
Sure.
Thank you.
I might have to.
And you're going to send that out to everyone, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we'll just go over some themes of things I changed. I really appreciated the small grammar things too. That was very appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. But we'll go over the bigger themes of the comments and our approach to the comments. Sorry, I'm a little laggy on Teams. Stop. No.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's worse. That's a lot worse.
You're going the wrong way.
Cool. Okay, so a big theme of what we've been talking about tonight and the chapter is this second question of when asked which types of housing are most needed in Mendon was housing for families, senior housing, and then the third option was young professionals. So a few comments were asking about, you know, if single family houses were noted as the most desirable, why are we talking about more bigger developments, condos, things such as that. And it was really going off of this data type of, you know, housing for families, senior housing, which was kind of assumed to also need to be affordable, but also smaller houses as well. And those younger kids that are moving out of the high school as well. So that was that comment. There's a comment,
I'm
commercial.
sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry, just going back to the goals.
Mm.
If I look at number 2 and number 3, I could say those might be in conflict with each other a little bit. You know what I mean? And I don't know if number 3. So Bill, it's more of a question. We think about the planning and the zoning and things like that, right? So
Right.
we want housing developments that reflect our small town rural character and agricultural heritage. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But they want to maintain a diverse housing stock.
Yeah, I think they're saying by diverse, they mean, you know, size,
Right.
whether a single family or a duplex or.
So is there an objective? And I don't know if this is possible, Bill, but I've heard you talk about it. Things like you go down to the Cape, you go to a Dunkin' Donuts in Chatham and it looks like every other building in Chatham, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
Fair?
well, we have a design, um, um,
Guidelines.
what's that?
You have design guidelines.
Design guidelines. that
So we
speak-
have those in place today to kind of make sure.
Yes,
that
we do.
have that.
Yeah, and they speak to the characteristics of Mendon.
Right. So regardless of the type of housing stock, we've got something in place that will make sure that the rural character of Mendon would be reflected in condos and or,
That's
cluster
correct.
housing.
That's correct.
All right. That answers my question then. 2 and 3 are not in conflict. I will retract that statement, Sarah.
Awesome.
And, but if they weren't there, Bill, I'd say that should be an objective, right? Rather
Yeah.
than so, okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and we apply that design guideline, Mike, to commercial as well as residential. We're expecting our commercial properties to be as well represented of Mendon as they can be, I guess. But
So state, regional, and local trends. A few comments here. I'm trying to remember if I had any questions about these. Clarified this language. Clarified this. For prior planning and engagement efforts, there are some comments asking to clarify this language that wasn't really possible because these are plans that have already been approved, especially the Mendon Housing Production Plan. So we couldn't really adapt any of these prior planning effort languages. We can clarify our own language at the end with objectives and goals. But this was basically all taken from other plans.
yeah.
Keep going. Oh, I think Lisa, this was your comment about MAPC. So I looked back, and we could also add this to the blurb, basically asking if MAPC's projections, if we are going to cite them in this plan, have been correct in the past. So they projected in 2010 that Mendon's population would be 5,800, and we're at 6,200. So it grew more than MAPC predicted in 10 years. And increase in senior population, primary actionable point. Love it. Love it.
That's a question to the
Oh.
group. Should it be this primary action? It feels like it should be. I guess my point would be, do we want to be more specific with what our plan is targeting, right? It feels like senior is probably the thing that comes out through the whole document. That's all.
Well, I think it's the one housing that lacks in Mendon, to be honest with you, Mike. So that's why people push it, because we really, some towns have extensive senior housing. Mendon has Sunrise Apartments. I think there's like 12 units.
Well, I think it makes sense, Bill. So, and maybe that's the highlight of so this master plan is just that. It's a plan for the next X number of years, right? So if the planning board and the select board are looking to use this as a guidepost to execute, then let's be clear with where we want to focus and dovetail, our 40B mitigation, if you will, by creating SHI inventory that addresses seniors, right?
Yeah.
Because it ties to our financial and our, survey desires.
Yeah, I think we did that with the garden apartments on Providence Road. And it's still on track. We, I think there's working on the water issue. That we're getting.
I think that should be highlighted too, by the way, because I think, this talks about, I don't know if this calls that out, Bill, but there's stuff that's real and happening that to get some momentum behind the plan, you can demonstrate to the taxpayers what is going on and how we are. It's not like nothing's happening, I guess is my point, right?
Well,
Things
I
are
mean,
happening.
that's not true. The housing plan we did, I worked with Bill McHenry on in 2019, addressed a lot of that stuff, Mike. The problem is, and that's why we're bringing this master plan together, this stuff was all in different places. The master plan has to bring this stuff together, and so you can find it all in one place. Bill McHenry and I spent a lot of hours working on that housing plan. And it identifies, affordable housing, it identifies senior housing. And that's basically when we move forward with the garden apartments on Providence, that was going to be like the test dummy for that housing plan. And, unfortunately, it hasn't gone off like we hoped, but it's still in the works.
So Mike, are you saying though to highlight what we are doing in the master plan?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, those are real tangible things that will be relatable to people, because when
Right.
Bill said garden apartments, I said, oh yeah, I remember, because that started, Bill, when I was on the board before, that whole
Right.
housing plan, right?
Right.
So I think those touch points for the average person is going to make passage of the plan that much better when it comes to, this comes up for a vote, I believe. Agreed?
Absolutely.
We need to accept the plan. So I think things like that, tangible results of, it's not just stats and surveys, it's actually we're executing against these ideas, and tangible results are either have been done or will be done, and they can go look at it, right?
Well, it doesn't the plan doesn't require a town meeting vote. My position is I think it'll have a lot more support if we do get it approved at town floor, but I
thought the plan had to be approved at town meeting. That's not the case?
No, it doesn't. It needs to be approved by the planning board. But I plan on taking it to town floor.
I do love the idea, Mike, of highlighting the tangible projects to say we are already moving in these directions, and highlighting so that people can, recognize that the town is doing things currently, and our plan, for the next 10 years is this. These are some of the things we're doing to get there.
Yeah.
Sarah, do you need more? Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, no, go ahead, Dominique.
Sarah, do you need more information on these specific projects and specific examples in order to do what's just been suggested?
I don't think, if I may, excuse me 1 second, Sarah. I don't think it benefits putting what's in the plan. I mean, this is a master plan.
Yeah.
You don't put in your current projects into a master plan. You're planning ahead. We're not worrying about what's already there.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving ahead.
Okay.
So to litter this thing, I mean, I think I saw Dominic cringe when I said I'm going to take this thing to town floor, because, I mean, we can't get a 10-page bylaw through in Mendon without 2 hours worth of discussion. Can you imagine? This is probably going to end up being 150 pages by the time we're done. Can you imagine? Way more, yeah. And we're going to expect to get this approved on town floor. So we'll need about 6 meetings to finish it. I've been warned by some parties that it's not always a good idea to bring a document like this to town floor. So I'll leave it up to the master plan's opinion whether that should happen or not. The committee's opinion.
Mr. Chairman, shall we have Sarah continue on then?
Yes, please. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Well, speaking of existing projects. This came up, I think I briefly mentioned it before we started looking at the document, but the 50 rental units on 3 acres of town-owned land. Did this specific example happen? We had a comment, is it for seniors? Is it affordable? Is there a bigger plan somewhere out there?
What are they talking about? I'm not even, there's no 50 unit affordable plan anywhere.
This came out of the 2019 Housing Action Plan as one of the
Oh,
goals.
that's the garden apartments you're talking about. It hasn't happened.
Okay.
It hasn't happened.
Is it still in the works?
Well, the problem is we need to be able to get water to it. And until recently, we didn't have access. We have property, we're gonna have to cross a stream for water. And we didn't have access to the other side of the stream or brook. So we finally got access through another piece of property that is becoming an open space project. So now it's just a matter of determining whether a well can be there, and then putting it up for RFP with, right now it's up for RFP, but no one's really bidding on it. Because it's not defined whether the water will be able to be obtained or not. So I think until that's done. But it's still a goal. Still a goal.
Well, that's a goal from the 2019 housing plan that we can carry over the
Yeah.
master.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
We haven't given up on that.
Nice. That was pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Good. We had a clarification on the claim that everyone who ages in Mendon will stay in Mendon. I was assuming that a goal of the master plan would be to be prepared for the larger senior population in hopes that everyone who would like to has the chance to. If we wanted to change that language to assume that less of the senior population will stay in Mendon, that could be an option.
Yeah, well, the planning board is moving towards trying to develop smaller model houses on less density for, so hopefully people can stay in Mendon. If they want to downsize their home, they don't have to leave town to do it. And we have some, we're working on some things now. We're going to be working on some zoning that, like I talked about before, some cluster housing maybe, and some, it's happening down the Cape a lot. They put these units together with these smaller homes on small density lots. They're only 2-bedroom units, so they're not likely to bring in, more kids to the school system because most families aren't going to move into a 2-bedroom. So it creates, a more affordable house for the aging community and less impact to the school systems. And I know Dennis has one right now going on. I've been down, I've seen it. A very nice little development, but the houses are like 1,200 square foot homes, and they're like one after the other. So you got to get used to that type of look. But that's about the only way with the cost of land in Mendon. That's the only way it's going to end up being able to make those type of developments.
Bill, I don't know if you, I thought I saw something about rural and density, like density drives definition of being a rural community. Did I read that somewhere?
I think it addressed population in as far as Mendon being rural. we're in that bracket of under 6, I forget what it's under, but I think it addressed, not density, but I forget where I saw it in the plan in this document. But it's
actually on page 5.
basically the population.
Yeah. So I guess on page 5, it's more of a question: is density is the key from what I read, defines rural community. Do we want to maintain that question mark, right? Is that an objective? Do we want to maintain or consider a rural community if density is a key to driving, which could be population, Bill, to your point?
Yeah.
How does what we just talked about in terms of the smaller homes, higher density, start to impact the original goal of rural feel, right?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, if you want to make more affordable housing, density is going to be an issue with that.
Right.
I mean, my opinion from planning and what I've been listening to for the last 12 years, Mike, is people want affordable homes for the aging community. And there's only certain ways to accomplish that.
Yeah.
Now we can just leave density as it is, and but I don't think a developer is going to come in and put in a development with all ranch homes on it. It's not going to produce a revenue enough for him to make it worth it for him.
When we talk about density versus rural character, I do think that maintaining the rural character in many ways is contingent upon preventing sprawl, right? So it's about, if you can concentrate your development into smaller little pockets, then you can preserve those marvelous view sheds and keep houses and other types of development out of them. I'm really excited about the cottage type developments that Bill was referencing. A lot of my communities who are working on master planning for land use chapters and housing chapters are finding that that's a strategy that's pretty well supported when you look at all the different housing types. Sarah, do you remember how the cottage house was, how Mendon residents felt about that one in particular?
I have the percentages right here. Cottage housing, 26%.
Now, not a lot of people, the average person has never heard of that. So maybe there's some education too.
Yeah, I think there's an education issue with that. I was reviewing those, and I take a lot of those percentages with a grain of salt. If you look how they're broken up in a broad spectrum. I mean, you got this at 26. The highest percentage you got of any housing is the 56% for single family dwelling.
I have single family homes. 87% of respondents said single family homes were extremely or very desirable. And then the next one after that was cottage housing, 26%.
Yeah, I'm not sure people understand what cottage housing is, but once again, a lot of this is going to be education.
So, and that sort of, Bill, gets to my original point. I think as this is written, I would really think you need to string together these are all different levers. So when I say they may be in conflict, well, they may be, but there may be ways to address the conflict, and they should be called out in the plan and on how people, so people will panic if they see it and say, oh my gosh, what does this mean? Kind of like I did when I saw density, right? But there's ways around it, as Dominique explained. So I just think there's got to be a consistent thread through the document to recognize where, if we call out what could be perceived as a contradiction to the layperson reading a document, that it can be tied out so the question's not asked. Does that make sense? How it can be accomplished, Bill. And I think you've got ideas on how to accomplish it. Just we just need to balance it within the course of the document, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just this isn't a survey. This isn't a survey request. We're not going to be able to spell out exactly everything we're going to attribute to in the future. We're just laying groundwork for direction.
Right.
We're not going to be able to spell out every single possibility that comes forward within the master plan. I mean,
I just think I hear you. I think you need to be very careful though, Sarah, with when you said, you caught my ear when you said people who wish to stay will have housing to stay in. I mean, people's desire may not be feasible, right? So I think we could be really, and you didn't put it on the left-hand side, it was in your comment. So I just think be really careful with how we're looking to create the opportunity as Bill's described for senior housing. The reality is not every senior that chooses to stay in Mendon is going to have that opportunity. But, this plan is putting forth an effort to increase that inventory to allow more to stay than can stay today. Does that make sense?
yes, yeah,
And Bill, you were right. On the PowerPoint slide for it said which of the following housing types are most needed in Mendon, and the survey said 51% said senior housing. So, of the respondents, we all understand that senior housing is very important.
yep.
May we keep going on the,
Yes, please, Sarah. That brief moment of silence, I was hoping you'd jump in, so.
always ready for some slow pauses for thought. A lot of stuff going on for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we went back a little bit, so keep
Yeah.
going. Again, I'll see how we could change this chapter around to make the population kind of different from housing. I think it's good to have all of these things in this plan since it is the housing and population plan, but we can kind of separate it from housing more. Since it doesn't really tie into the action items as much as other things do, if that works for the committee.
I'm fine with that.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Finish that. Finish that. Here is a question of if this is a bigger action item of the goal. Creating more rental housing or temporary housing options is crucial to allow Mendon residents to remain in the town throughout their life cycle stages if desired.
Yeah, I think that's, I think once again, we're just reiterating what we've already spoken about.
Excellent. Oh, for this, I am in the process of getting in touch with the building commissioner to make sure these statistics are correct about the current building activity and trends over the last 10 years since this was taken from the U.S. Census Bureau.
Yeah, I think you guys were off on this one. Let me, I don't think it's this chart. I think it's the next one. That you guys, the numbers are incorrect. No, that's not it. Yeah, how many building permits were issued?
Yeah.
Is that
So
it?
yeah, we'll update that figure based on what the building commissioner has.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you guys are way off in the last few years. He was like, oh,
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
no problem.
Yes, we had this COVID-19 section because of a regional trend that Central Mass is looking at of will more people move to Central Massachusetts out of the city because of COVID? This is, again, a huge assumption, but we stuck it in here just as a possible scenario.
So, Sarah, is there any more? So that's like a potential. That'd be if you're doing like a SWAT, that'd be a threat, right? Potentially, if you think about this, right? What about things like, I've been reading about how east-west commuter rails like being expanded to go really far west. So, Bill, to your point, all of a sudden we've got easy access to the city from Mendon, as opposed to where we are today. 40B developments become a lot more feasible to the developer, right? So are there other threats
Well,
like that should be called out?
in the requirements, Mike, if we ever get a rail to come close to us, like if that one goes through Hopedale, the requirements to meet the changes to 40A become much greater.
So
If
that
you're
would be a
with,
threat,
if,
right?
yeah, if you're within, I think it's if your town line basically is within a mile of any public transportation, the demands for your town greatly increase.
Right.
Affordable housing units, apartment dwellings, I don't even want to think about that. My head would, I'd have to make some major changes to the bylaws.
Does
Well,
the
I think
sorry.
COVID-19 makes sense in that sense, Sarah, in terms of because you can work remote, all of a sudden public transportation is not as needed, right? That's the point of it. Everybody's working remotely.
I think that was the intention, but I don't think working remotely has taken on as well as they anticipated. There's still a lot of people working in the city. The trains are still packed.
This is more of a possible scenario, so we could look into. Does the committee think that the opportunity of a commuter rail is a possibility enough to add into this chapter?
Only if it went to Hopedale. It's not going to come through Mendon anytime soon. But
So maybe we could combine impact of COVID-19 and potential expansion of public transportation to just kind of connect that Mendon might be more Mendon just might see a population increase.
It's certainly certainly reasonable to assume. Everybody does appear to be moving out from the urban areas more to the rural areas.
Okay.
Mm.
So there's not currently zoning for condos in
No,
Mendon made
no,
available.
there is not. We have a duplex. We have zoning for duplexes, and most often they get condoized into two separate units. But there's no specific. That's something we're working on. We're going to have to address it to make sure it's built the way we want it to be built, because they're going to count. And like I said, with the current changes requiring multi-unit development to 40A, like I said, I'm not sure the impact yet, but we're working through it.
Okay.
Thanks, Sarah, on that next comment.
Mm-hmm.
About, I think this is more level setting within this plan, because there's a lot of reference to affordable housing and how cradle to grave housing for Mendon residents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we got to be clear that affordable housing that's built in Mendon is not necessarily restricted to Mendon residents, right? So just going in with full disclosure to the people that are looking at this document. That's all that comment was meant to imply.
Okay. So where do you see that fitting into the plan?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm not sure that's a factor, Mike. I think people would assume. You can't plan based on that, whether there's 40% Mendon residents who move into them, or there's always going to be they become residents when they come here. So it's
right. So but when I think I'm going from the survey perspective, Bill.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the high percentage of senior housing is really focused on those folks in Mendon today that want to downsize and can't want to stay in Mendon, right? So if you build up SHI inventory and affordable housing, yeah, that's addressing it. But I think it's just more of a point of clarity to somebody reading this document to make sure it's education. They understand how that's going to work. People can't assume that the over 55 housing is, it's more of a point of clarification and education to the average person reading this, because this document does have this perception of it's for Mendon residents, when in fact it really can't just be for Mendon residents necessarily. Does that make sense?
No, it addresses a need. But yeah, if you want to
Yep.
put something in that clarifies it, sure.
I'm not a member of this committee, so I'm going
Yeah.
to defer to the committee on
Well, we
whether
were
that
going to
gets
talk
added or
about
not.
that, Mike. We're going to talk about that.
Uh-oh. I added this data point in on how many of the neighboring towns have single versus dual tax rates to support the figure 16 here. And this comment was about if Mendon is currently saturated with housing, and if that's the state of it. We didn't really look into that for the housing chapter. I'm not sure if the land use chapter covered that. I wasn't a part of that team.
I think what we've done with the land use so far is break out the strategies. I don't think it's been written yet. I'm talking with Jane, what's it, Wynack? We're discussing the land use strategies, so.
Yeah, so in terms of in the land use chapter, we will include at least a partial build out analysis for land, looking at different types of constraints. We can do a full blown build out analysis as part of the land use plan to the extent that it's useful. It's an undertaking. And if that's where we want to allocate those type of resources, we can do that too. Given the low density housing in Mendon, I would be shocked to say it's saturated. It's not fully built out in any.
Yeah, it's not fully built out. There's still a lot of properties, large properties that haven't been developed. Not sure they ever will be, but there's still quite a bit of available land in Mendon.
Great, so we can address that in the land use chapter. That'll be helpful.
Yeah.
And I'm skipping through some comments that are basically the same
Sarah.
themes over.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
sorry, just the single dual tax rate thing. That gets back to a broader look at this in terms of the comps for the different areas of this chapter changed in terms of what Mendon was being compared to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another area where I think we should call out. That's just one more factor in that when I was reading it, if that makes sense. So we should I would recommend this, but we have comp towns, rural communities, et cetera, that, Bill, I don't think we should compare ourselves to, say, Uxbridge when we think about commercial development as an example, right?
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Mendon's the only town in the area not to have water and sewer, and that's
right. I mean, you look at this. I mean, the SHI inventory really calls that out. If you think about, look at Uxbridge, Bellingham, those.
Everybody around us has water and sewer.
Right, and they have a higher inventory, right?
Yeah.
So maybe Bill, this is what we do. If the state says you need to increase your SHI inventory, we tell the state to set us up with sewer and water. How's that sound?
There you go. There you go.
All right, that's a plan. That's our plan.
That's a plan.
So, Mike, I saw the comment about the comparable towns, and I think some of the figures were using like all of the surrounding towns of Mendon, and others were using just more comparable towns. But I didn't just make them consistent to keep it going through the plan to the towns that surround Mendon proximity-wise. If we wanted to change some of them, like the subsidized housing inventory, to be more rural towns, that's also an option.
I think that's a good point. How do you compare when we couldn't compare to Bellingham? Yeah, they're next door, but they have water and sewer.
I mean, but Hopedale's a good indicator.
Yes.
And Hopedale's, they have much more diverse housing than we do. I mean, they've a lot of stuff. There was a mill housing built years ago. Is
Right.
much more diverse than what Mendon has.
Right.
But
Maybe we should
Hopedale,
take
there's
into
some,
account, Bill, all those little towns that broke off from Mother Mendon. We should get credit for those. How's that sound?
yeah, I think you're right, Mike. There were 7 towns, so. But you know, I mean, to go to further rural, I mean, Douglas maybe.
If I could offer just one alternative perspective, so you can make any, you're all, you all know this, but you can make any case you want depending on the
Right.
types of fonts you choose.
Right.
If we just, in order to be fully transparent and eliminate any subjectivity from any of the cases we make, you could just simply pick the adjacent towns, and we can do that consistently throughout all the chapters of the master plan. And if you want us to underscore in particular instances why one case is especially salient, we could do that, but just stick with something in which there's no subjectivity, geographic proximity, that's it.
Yeah, except for, to be honest with you, except for Southbridge, they all are surrounding towns. Southbridge is the only one they're not. If you're going to take Southbridge out, put Upton in. Upton would be, I mean, they're our sister town for our school system, and they're more like us than probably anybody else around.
Great point.
And I think consistency is probably the biggest point too. You know,
Yeah.
as long as it's, you know, across all the areas.
But all the other ones are neighboring towns.
Great. So I'll triple check that all of the comparable towns are just the neighboring ones, and we'll go with that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And you know,
So
they
one last comment on that then. Is there a chance for an appendix to understand, are there specific, Bill, can you think of specific demographics about each town you'd want to put in the table format so we can understand, like single rate, tax rate, dual tax rate, things like that, so that there's sort of almost like an appendix that shows you how it's all the same towns, it's consistent, but then you can also get a little more information on how we compare to specific towns just in the appendix, something like that. And maybe it's a culmination sort of everything you have, you know.
Yeah,
per
I'm just trying
capita,
to weigh the
income,
fact,
things like
Mike. I'm trying to use this master plan for what it's for. It's planning forward. And like I said, that this document's going to be big enough. I don't want to just add stuff for the sake of adding it. I'm not sure breaking out dual tax rates in a master plan housing section makes a lot of sense.
I do plan to tackle that in the economic development section.
There you
And
go.
where things aren't appropriately touched on, and if anywhere, we can definitely come back and underscore it. I would be so thrilled if one person on this call right now looked at the appendix, never mind read it. If one person on this committee and nowhere else in town looked, I would be shocked and thoroughly surprised. So, but I will hit that in the ED section for sure.
Okay. Keep going, Sarah.
Thank you. I think we're almost to the end.
Yay.
Mm.
Man, my eyes getting bad.
I'm going fast. My apologies.
No, it's when I gotta lean up to my laptop, it's
That might be the end. I don't think there's too much on the objectives. Oh, yes. Lisa, I think this was you. I would love to put a housing choice community designation blurb in the issues and opportunities section above the goals and action items, just to educate on what that means. So that's on my list.
sure.
But then I think that was it. So as a summary, on my end, I'm going to follow up with the building commissioner and fix that stat on how many buildings have been built in the last 10 years. I'm going to add the housing choice designation to the issues and opportunities. double check, triple check all the figures to make sure they're all just neighboring communities. And then I believe those were the only big changes. Anything I missed, Ryan?
Nope, I don't think so.
All right.
So,
Well-
Mr. Chairman, oops, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, go ahead. I was gonna ask you if we'll move on from this, the review of this, we'll wait for Sarah's. Sarah, you gonna do the changes first and then send it out, or you gonna send out what you have right now?
These should be quick, so I should be able to make these changes, and I'll add all the original comments to that document as well, so you could read those more in depth, most likely
Perfect.
tomorrow.
Perfect. All right, so we'll move on to the next agenda item unless anybody has any further comments. No, all right. Next agenda item.
Mr. Chairman, I think that was it for substantive items. The next agenda item is other items not anticipated in the last 48 hours.
Okay. Now, I received a copy of the land use and economic development strategies. Did everybody get a copy of those?
No.
Well, we
Okay.
workshopped them. We workshopped all of the goals.
Yeah.
All of the goals and objectives that you saw tonight, we've workshopped in depth. And then everything that was sent to you, the land use and economic development goals, and I think objectives, those were also workshopped as a committee, but it's been quite a while, so I can recirculate them.
Yeah, why don't you do that? I know I'm talking with Jane Wynack on the land use, and I think, was it Hannah? Oh, no.
Yeah, Mary Hannah.
Mary Hannah on the other one. And then we got the economic development one too. So I think we're heading in a great direction. I like the looks of the housing plan. I know there was some tweaks we had to do with it, but certainly from a planning perspective, it gives me a much broader idea of what the town's looking for. Unfortunately, once again, it's not going to be all encompassing. Town has to behave in a responsible manner. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If that's it, does anybody else have any other further comments? If not, I need a motion.
Make a
Make a
motion.
motion to adjourn.
That's the one. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bob, you got your hand up for a reason?
Yeah, I do. And this can be a question after the meeting is closed, is fine. One of the questions I have is, now Mendon wants to accommodate the senior population. But what I'm finding is, if somebody wants to build a ranch, it's called the desirable housing, which comes at a premium on the taxes or their assessment, because it's a single floor house that has quote unquote desirable, it's desired. So how can we make it affordable for people to want to build smaller houses that don't punish them for building smaller houses?
Well, our tax rate's based on value, Bob. So it doesn't matter whether it's labeled a premium house or whatever. It's based on value. It's whatever the market preserves the house at. The tax rate issue is never going to be, never going to be an easy answer. If you're going to live in Mendon, you're going to pay taxes, and you're going to pay sweet taxes.
Okay, I guess there's no.
There's nothing the town can do to offset that. I mean, other than, the discount they give to the seniors. There's nothing they can do to give a house a break.
Well, I guess my question though isn't whether or not it's looking for a break, is why is it being charged differently than a two-story house?
It isn't being charged differently. The tax you pay in your home is based on value.
Bob,
you
I
were putting-
recommend you give Jean Berthold a call because she will fully explain it to you because she does the assessments and you'll come away understanding it. You may not like it, but she does a really good job explaining why the smaller houses are their values went up higher than the larger colonials did. Their values went up significantly more because they were highly sought and thus drove the house prices up. So, but if you call Jean at the assessor's office, she will be glad to explain it to you.
No, I get that. I was just trying to figure out how you can make a senior, affordable senior housing when that's what they're desiring.
Well, they're going to be as affordable as they can be. No one says that property in Mendon's ever going to be, the days of the $200,000 home in Mendon are gone. I think what you're seeing in the difference between the smaller home price increase is that the larger homes are already at max value. I mean, larger homes are pushing $1 million now.
Well, here's a question for you.